Hi there, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to the NHSGA Back to School High School Golf webinar. So happy that you all are able to join us here this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Noble, and I manage the National High School Golf Association. We're really excited for this event here tonight. We have some great presenters lined up for everyone to really just kick off the school year on a high note. And before I do my first introduction, want to take a moment and do some special thank yous, especially to our presenting partners, Titleist and FootJoy, who really without their support and everything that they do for high school golf, this event wouldn't be possible here tonight. I want to give a special shout out to them and obviously all of our presenters in our other partner, Junior Golf Hub, as well for being part of this special event. Also a special thank you to my colleague and our senior director, Chris Hart, who will be joining me here tonight. You'll see him on camera doing some questions for the presenters. So everyone, we're going to be using the chat feature as well for questions. Chris will put a quick plug in there so everybody can see that. So please type in any and all questions that you might have for everyone. And then basically at the end of each segment, we'll make sure that we get to every question that we can. And even if we're not able to get to everyone, we'll make sure to give some contact information so you can get in touch with our presenters after the end of the presentation here tonight. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first presenter. And we're so thrilled to have Trillium Rose joining us here tonight, and a great friend to us at the NHSGA, a great friend to the PGA of America, to Titleist as well. And Trillium's a rock star. I tell you what, she is, I mean, I could go on for a while, but Golf Digest, LPGA top 50 teacher in America, Titleist staffer, the list goes on. And she's really devoted her whole life to, bettering young men and women throughout the country with their golf games, and just is an absolute, she's just an absolute thrill to have on here tonight. So Trillium, without further ado, I will let you take things away, and thank you so much for joining us here this evening.
Thank you so much for that introduction. That was a nice one. So I'm assuming I'm unmuted and I'm ready to go. So I wanted to first also thank you and thank the everybody in the National High School Golf Association who's doing so much to develop young golfers. And it's you who's watching. You are the coaches, and you are really have so much influence in how these young players move through life. Very few are going to make it to the PGA Tour, and that's always something fun to think about. But I think more often we are going to influence someone's experiences that are going to last with them forever. So I really, my hats go off to you, and it's not always an easy job. So I'm excited to be here and really honored. I also want to thank Titleist for being such an advocate for developing golfers and also for developing and fostering more diversity. I'm really, really impressed with so many people at the company at Titleist and FootJoy for all of the efforts that have been going on to really bring together a lot more different colored people and more genders and making it more accessible. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to talk today about making the most of your practices. And this is this is where the rubber meets the road. So I don't have that much time, so I'm gonna zip through a lot of things, but I'm gonna hit kind of 4 really important benchmarks and points that you can use in your practices. Now, I do realize that there are a few of you that are national champions, a few that are state champions, have state championships under your tutelage, and there are some coaches that are listening that have just started. So I do realize that there's a really, really wide variety of people, and I think that's great. So hopefully, if you have a ton of experience, you can pick at least 1 or 2 things up from this. So before we even get into anything, I think the first thing that's absolutely imperative with effective coaching is having a goal and having a really, really crystal clear concept of what your what your objectives are for the year. And if they're outcome goals, it's important to break those steps down that your players need to take to achieve that. And I think that's a really good starting place before even thinking about what your curriculum might be or how you're going to spend your time with the players. So you can add up how many hours you have over the year, and you can think, well, if we really break that down, how much time do we really need to spend doing A, B, and C? And then let's think about how we can kind of plug that all in. So goals, as you know, they need to be actionable, realistic, and think about how you're going to use those goals. So I know obviously everyone wants to win the state championship, but how? And like we really have to break that down. What are those smaller move goals or the benchmarking goals? Like for example, I'd say with my players that I'm looking to play D1, I'm hoping that any shot inside 100 yards, they can get within 10 feet. That's sort of an example of a benchmark. So having a way to test these goals as you go and kind of see where you are is really good. And it keeps the agenda going on a day-to-day basis where you can always go back to those goals, you can always reflect on them, and everyone's kind of singing off the same song page. So your objectives are going to drive the content basically for your day's practice and kind of measure how their behavior changes. So I think that's always, a very good umbrella concept to have. Now, when it comes to practices, there's a tremendous amount of research that's in physical education on coaching effectiveness, teacher effectiveness, and how we can get the most out of players. So some of this I've pulled out of some of the just great research, and a lot of it's pretty anecdotal, and I'm sure a lot of it will be pretty familiar to you. But based on what the scientific research has said, these are the points that I know keep coming up over and over and over again. So number one is planning. And planning really is how you're going to structure your practice within a given time. And how much time do you have to begin with, and how are you going to spend that time, and what do you need to cover? Planning is something that I think all of us can probably always do a little bit better. John Wooden was known for being an incredible planner, and he did a lot of note cards, and like there's not a single minute that was ever wasted in his practices. I think that's such a good model. So you could have a written plan with room for transitions. I have a template that I use when I'm using my junior golf plan, and there's always a goal at the top for what the goal is for the lesson, and then how are we going to once you break that goal down, how are we going to feel it? What are the drills we're going to use? And then, okay, what drills are we going to use? Where are they going to be stationed? What are the safety considerations? And so, like, the more you really think about it ahead of time, the more you can get out of your players, because you have it all well thought out. So I always think it's good to look for ways to reduce your waiting time and transitions. And I think depends on your players. If you've got players that are really motivated and they're ready to go, you probably don't have to worry about that so much. But if you've got younger players that are new to the game that really need a lot of direction, that's something to think ahead. So usually before tasks or after tasks, those are the transitions. Those are the times where you get a lot of wasted time, those gaps. And anytime you have a gap, you know that someone's not learning, and that's wasted time. So I'm big on planning to reduce all of that. One of the second things that I want to go over is the progression of a skill. If we're working on skills, the progression of skill, the pacing of the skill, and the sequencing of the skill. This is something I love talking about, and I love getting into because this matters so much when we're trying to really make sure that someone can learn something. So progression, I'm really speaking about moving something from simple to complex, or flat lie on a driving range to uneven lie to buried lie to, that kind of thing. First, you have a very wide target, narrower target, very specific target. You had 3 shots the first time, then you're going to have 2 shots. Now you have 1 shot, that kind of thing. So you go from easy to hard. Now, simple to complex. And there's not one particular progression for everybody that's going to work at all times. There may be some players that need to stick with one longer, and others you can move right up the ramp. So in order to keep everybody engaged and keep everyone on task and learning, we really think about how we can challenge them and keep them challenged so there's an appropriate level of difficulty, not too challenged, but not under challenged. So that means your progressions need to be in place and thought of so that when someone is kind of grooving and they're doing really well at 50 yards, and they're hitting balls at 50 yards, all right, well, how can you make that harder? Now go to 35 yards. Now go to 20 yards. Now go 20, 30, 50, 20, 30, 50. Easy. Whereas Sally over on the other end is having a hard time getting to 50 yards, and Katie, 50 yards is super easy and she's bored. So it's basically, I think of it like a little dial. So how are you going to ramp the dial up depending on that person's challenge point? So that's where progressions come in, and so it's simple to complex, easy to hard, that kind of thing. Now, pacing is important too. So that somebody's processing the information and they're not overwhelmed with what you're trying to do. Now, let's suppose that we're working on 50-yard shots again, and you've got someone coming way over the top and someone coming way inside. So I'd say, all right, now we need to go over the objective of I always like using numbers because numbers are hard to argue with. We're looking at a swing direction. We'd like the swing direction to say be 2 degrees from the inside. And you don't need a TrackMan to be able to measure this. You could put a ball or a tee or something in the way. So it gives you some feedback as to where that club's coming from. So I'd say step 1 is let's get a feel for where that trail arm needs to be, where that trail wrist needs to be, where that club needs to be. And so the pace of that skill could really just stay there for a while until people really get the feeling for that. And then you can move on to maybe a bigger follow through or a bigger backswing. So I do a tremendous amount of small 30 to 50 yard shots with people when their full swings are off, because from halfway to halfway, from hip to hip, that's really where the magic happens. And if you can get the club moving in a good direction and you can hit the center of the face, wrist and arm motions feel and look the way they should look, your full swing is going to be okay. And sequencing is kind of the same thing as progressions and pacing. Sequencing is the order of events. What are you going to give them so that's not too much information too early on or too hard too early on. Every now and then, by the way, I feel like I'm talking to people and I want to hear what people have to say. I've gotten used to not seeing audiences, but I'm usually a very audience engaged speaker. So, if a hand raises in the middle of this stuff, I like to see what it is.
Well, Trillium, I'll interrupt you. This is Chris Hart from the NHSGA. There's a good question here, I think, came in from Coach Bobby in Nebraska. He wanted to know, he's a newer coach, and brand new coach, has a lot of kids that are newer to the game. How do you do practices as a newer coach? He's just wants almost like coaching 101. Like if you were to start tomorrow, what would you do?
Yeah. So the players are new and he's a new coach?
Yes. Yeah. So really like brand new.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. All right. So if the players are new, well, they're going to need some solid basics. And I'm going to guess that coach, you play golf. You've got a good knowledge of those basics.
Yeah, he does play golf. Yeah.
Grip, posture, setup. I love the idea of getting some good swings in there, so you know that the kids can make contact. If I wouldn't let everyone hang out on the range for too long, because you got to get on the golf course. So I think as this, the minute that you hit that tipping point where you've got some kids hitting golf shots, I think then you've got to get on the golf course and start doing some scrambles. Now, in terms of your structuring the practice, I'd say systems. Just set up some systems. A system with your expectations of warm up. We're going to do a dynamic warm up, and you're going to start by hitting, let's say, I don't know what your setup is, but for us, we have an easy way to measure how many golf balls are in a tube of 2. We have 24 in the short game area. So you could say we're going to do a tube from a flat lie, and then you're going to do a tube from the rough. So you're going to get a lot of repetitions in with them, and they're not going to waste a lot of time. I probably spend a tremendous amount of time in the short game, and a lot of time on the drives, and then just get it down the fairway. But once you get to once you get to the green, you got to get it on the green.
Okay,
blasting.
cool.
What did I miss? Did I miss anything on that?
Oh no, I think it's good. Obviously, doing not just the range, not just short game, but on the course, and having a good mix, I think is important, especially for a new coach. So not to just focus on one thing. There's another question from David Lepore in here. He's from Bluffton, South Carolina. He coaches a girls team. He only has 4 girls though. Any advice or thoughts on recruiting or things that you've seen to help, especially get more girls to play?
If you can practice at a time where you think you might see some other parents, that's always good. Parents see their girls. If they have a way of getting their friends. I mean, this is a tough one. We're always getting, trying to get more girls. Not sure where you can draw from, but you could even make some phone calls to some local clubs and ask if there are any girls. But I guess from that particular school, you're really, limited to the school, I'm assuming. This is not easy, but I think what we found is that the girls doing it, and if they're visible, they usually tend to attract the younger ones. So it's just, for what I've experienced, it's a slow process, because the younger ones are 8 when they see the 12-year-old, and then they want to do it. And then, so I do programs right now with 5-year-olds because I want those 5 and 6-year-olds to know golf, and kind of then you plant the seed. So I like to get them started early. If you're already the coach, if they're having fun and they can share it with their friends, that's great.
Well, I think you make a really good point too of saying call around to a few clubs. So if there's other clubs, or if you're in an area that has many courses, calling the PGA professionals, LPGA professionals, they might know some students, whether they're high school age or maybe before, that could be future players. So I think as simple as making a few phone calls and using your PGA professional as a resource is really good advice.
Yeah.
This is one you could take this. This actually could be helpful we talked through some of the coaching practice plans, but how about as a player? We have Vincent who said, what's the most efficient way to practice? He's a high school student who's listening on.
It's an efficient practice. He's a high school student. Oh, that's great that you're on. So he's a player in high school?
Yep.
That's great. So back to finding a challenge point, finding something that if you're hitting something on the driving range and it's easy, that's probably not a good use of your time. So if you're hitting a lot of drives and you're like, okay, this is good, I feel good, not always an indicator of how you're going to do on the golf course. So I think people need to play a lot. And the other thing is, if you know where your weaknesses are, I'm a huge fan of knowing your stats. And so if you know your stats, then you know where to spend your time practicing. Thinking, okay, I shot an 86. It's like a little of everything, but you never know. There may be something that's a lot more obvious. And if it's a little of everything, then maybe you need to figure out what's causing you that issue in your swing. Go work with your coach or your instructor and figure out what's that move that's causing maybe a 2 miss. So I'd say, circling back, figure out what your weaknesses are, work on them, and then make sure whatever you're doing, you can measure it and make it hard. So 10 balls. All right, I think games are great. Out of 10 balls, I'm going to have 10 points if they all go in the cup, 5 points if it's within 3 feet, 2 points if it's in 1 feet, that kind of thing. So you're never just hitting, but you're always going for something with a goal and points in mind.
All right, Vincent, you got a challenge and you have goals. We also have a parent on here. Gabrielle asked, what age should you get fitted for Titleist clubs? She said clubs, but I'm throwing in Titleist clubs or Titleist balls.
So I am a big fan of equipment that fits, but I realize that it's not an option for everybody. I'm not a fan of spending $2,000 every 2 years if that's going to put great hardship on your family. So I do think, but having said that, if your kid's going to play golf, and the clubs don't fit, you could actually be doing a disservice, because the mechanics could be at a much. For instance, let me give you an example. If you have a really heavy club with a girl, for example, who's not that strong, I'm thinking of myself. I grew up with men's clubs. There's a really good chance that the angles of the club and the movement of your hands aren't going to be all that great. It usually produces all kinds of bad habits if the clubs don't fit. So I do think fit as often as you can afford to get fit.
In any age where like you should first get fit, or what's normal, I guess.
I mean, it depends, because I've got an 8-year-old who's a really serious player, and she's playing 18 holes and shooting par. So an 8-year-old, right? So she's fit. She's been fitted. But there are 8-year-olds that have never played golf before, so it's a really hard thing. I'd say you'll know if your child is playing. I mean, U.S. Kids Golf makes it's a great brand as long as you can fit into it. So I'm an advocate of U.S. Kids Golf. If your child is really short, if you're an adult, or if you're over 53 inches tall, which is like 5 feet. If you're over 5 feet, I would, and your child's serious, I would just get fitted right away.
Cool. This is another actual parent question. So we talked about coaching drills as a high school coach, as a student, Vincent asked, and now as a parent. Any drills at home? Like, what can you do at home for practice and drills that a parent could help with their student?
That's such a hard one, because I don't know who's in front of me. If you go onto my Instagram account, though, I have a bunch of Trillium_Rose. I have a lot of videos that you can do indoors. I have a bunch of indoor stuff on the Titleist website as well, that you can check out. But some of it's a little bit like, going into the drugstore and figuring out which vitamins you need. It's like, I don't exactly know what you need. You're probably going to need vitamin C. So, in terms of a golf swing, bottoming out is an important thing, knowing where that club's going to bottom out. So I get a doormat, and if your kid, bottoming out meaning the club hitting the ground. So if your kid is hitting 2 feet behind, 2 feet ahead, not hitting at all, that's going to be a problem when the ball's there. So, draw a big target on a doormat. You can get doormats at Michael's for $15. You don't even need to buy a golf mat. And make some swings until you can hit that point. Get some foam balls. I'd say that's a really good one. The other one I'd say is through impact. Don't let anyone get flicky with the wrists. I spend more time working on that than anything else. So say, through impact, and I'll just stand up a little bit. If your lead wrist is doing this through impact, that would be a good thing to work on.
Cool. That's great. I just put Trillium's Instagram in the on the chat here, and then I'll find the Titleist link too and put that on there for some more indoor drills.
I'm pretty engaged on Instagram too. So if you have any requests, I'm always open. But I do think in terms of feedback, if you're a parent or you're a coach, it's got to be really positive, and it's got to be concise. So that was another thing I wanted to talk about. Just being able to say good shot doesn't necessarily help anybody. I mean, it makes them feel good, but why was the shot good? Good job finishing with your weight on the front foot. Good job rotating your chest, or good job with anything that would help with the learning.
Well, it's actually this is a good question from John in Idaho, but I'll take this one and answer. He says, is there any ways you can get help out with clubs from affordability? Some students can afford it, some can't. So Titleist, who is our partner, does actually offer a high school partner program. So if you go see your local PGA professional, he or she can help you, and Titleist has given special pricing to that. So it depends on the course and the pro what that pricing is, but Titleist does offer that. So make sure to check with your local PGA professional, and should be able to get some more affordable products for your team, for your players in that way. So just make sure you ask your PGA professional. And thanks to Titleist for that. And it's a great question.
I'm seconding that because Titleist has made a big introduction to golf clubs that are for people that are also learning the game. The T300, T400 series are off the charts great as game improvement clubs. I'm blown away at the high quality golf club they put out, and it's not just for tour players, so worth checking out.
We do have another student, a girl, Abigail, on here. So this is a very broad question, but she said, what's the best way to improve your score? She's shooting in the low 50s, but really wants to be in the 40s for 9 holes. So that's a loaded question, but what do you think?
I love that. I'd say, of course, we're trying to get more predictable with what your ball flight's going to look like. So if you have particular shot shape, that's a good thing. If it's going 2 ways, that's not. So I'd figure that out real quick. Probably the fastest way to get yourself good is work on your short game. Because you can get away with a lot of bad shots with the full swing. You can get away with, not hitting it perfectly with the driver. But if you're not getting it close with your 30, 40, 50-yard shot so that you can at least have a chance at a 1-putt, it's really hard to score. So I'd say keep working on everything.
Yeah, well, there you go. You gotta get that short game, Abigail, to get down the 40s. This is a good question from Maddie. I'm not sure if it's a coach, parent, or student, but any advice for golfers from the mental side of golf, and any resources you use, or how do you work on your mental game?
There's a guy named Brian Levinson who I know. He's written a great book, and Brian Levinson he's a golfer himself. He's got a good handle on things. I also think the Vision 54, that's Lynn Marriott and Pia Nielsen. They've got a great book called Every Shot Must Have a Purpose. Zen Golf's another good one. So I'd start with the really available stuff and read some of these books. And then Debbie Cruz wrote a book called Energy in Motion. I think it's out of print, but if you can dig that thing up, boy, that's an amazing book. Really based on a lot of research. So I would start there.
Okay. So a lot of good reading out there available on the mental side. I don't know if you're familiar with this, John. There's an app called Imagine Golf too. It's like a golf app, and kind of visually you can listen to some mental game tips. I've heard of that, and it's kind of neat.
Someone just sent that to me. I haven't checked it out yet, but I just heard about it.
It's just kind of simple. It's something that's simple and easy, and might be a resource for those who don't want to read as much, might want to listen.
Right.
Another mental game question. So that's good. Well, this is interesting. When should you consider having a full or part-time PGA professional as a coach? My daughter's 12 years old.
That's another hard question. It depends so much. Depends so much on the 12-year-old. I can think of examples of people who've sent kids to me way too early, and kids they've come to me and I'm like, wow, I wish I had seen you 5 years ago and you wouldn't have developed these bad habits, and you already have bad habits and you're 12. So I'd say it depends on how serious your child is. If your child is a really serious player, get them to a coach fast, because the earliest patterns that they learn are the strongest. So like what I'm saying is, if you get those good habits in early, it's a lot easier than if you wait.
Cool. So yeah, don't get those bad habits. The bad habits are going to be harder to break the longer that you wait, and So that's good advice. And yeah, it depends. Sometimes coaching, if you're just is not right for people, they need to make sure they love and make the game fun before they start taking private lessons to that point too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Are they interested in doing it? I mean, exactly.
Cool. I did have one other question. I guess it's kind of similar to one before, but any indoor tips for coaches too? So this coach is from New York, Coach Barnes, and I guess their season's really short, especially in the winter. They need to like practice, get ready for the spring. They don't have much time outdoors. So if you were, I think you're in Maryland, Trillium, but if you if you only had indoor practice, what would you focus on? How would you do that if you had a gym at your disposal?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I grew up playing in Vermont, by the way, so my season was like 2 weeks long. um, there's a program that I run at Woodmont. I call it ability class. And we have down golf clubs, and I find that so it's an hour long, and we'll just go through. We go through the golf swing. So these are adults, but they're learning the golf swing in detail. And I found that this has been so helpful because they're not expected to hit a ball, but they're really understanding what it feels like to make a good move. So I'm a huge advocate of working on your mechanics inside without having the hit. Like a hitting net can actually be worse because then the kid doesn't know necessarily what they've done. I've seen this before where people have gotten worse with indoor hitting nets because they're like, I'm just going to hit and see what the ball does. But I do think if you've got mirrors, you've got training aids, and you've got foam balls, you could do that. But I'd say really, really focus on what you're trying to do. TPI's got a library of stuff. I mean, you could just go in there and like pick through that database and figure out like what kind of exercises would help, and then do some exercises and then do some drills hitting a ball to, I'm thinking early extension, I'm thinking, staying in your posture. There's a multitude of stuff you could do that would get kids better. Now, the question is, are they going to have fun doing it? Are they going to listen? I don't know. That good luck with that. but the stuff that you could do inside would be almost like twice as potent as if you did it outside, because people get so obsessed with hitting the ball, they forget feel the motion, or they forget what it's like to go slowly, or they have a hard time tuning into what the motion is, and they get caught up in the outcome. So you have a captive audience. So I like that you're thinking about how to use it.
Yeah, actually that was another question, is do you incorporate workouts into your golf practices too? So any thoughts on fitness workouts or resources that might be good for coaches?
Yep. Again, I think TPI does an amazing job with that. There's a bunch of really great people that have free stuff online. Jason Glass does. Lance Gill does. They've got all stuff that's really golf. Evan Duffy. So these are people that are fitness professionals that are geared towards golf. And I think you blend it right into the practice. Here you go. We're just going to start with 20 minutes of these workouts, and then we're going to start practice. Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, that's a challenge too, because it's like if you only have a small gym, which team is going to get the space for workouts, and who gets the gym, and so coaching challenges. But yeah, that's good that there's some resources based with TPI and other things that are online that are free to use, and drills that you can incorporate fitness wise into your coaching practice. Brad's joining here in 1 minute, so I think we have time for probably one more question. This is another loaded one for Trillium, but EJ wants to know, besides getting better scores, anything else that his son could do to have a better chance of getting recruited? So obviously scores are one thing, but anything else, like thoughts on the recruiting, so more avid elite players?
Yeah, this is such a this is such a difficult question because every coach kind of takes a different approach. I do think playing in tournaments that are close to the school that you're interested is important. Reaching out to the coaches, starting a relationship, keep a log of who you've talked to, what you've said, how they've responded, because it's going to get really messy when you've got 15 coaches you've been talking to and you forget who you've talked to and who's emailed back. So be really careful about that. So I would get the dialogue going. You have to market yourself. So you've got to put your best foot forward. You've got to play in hard tournaments. I mean, the toughest field you can play in is going to get the most attention. Your club championship doesn't matter. Your high school tournaments really don't matter that much. They want you to play in stuff where they know what the field is. And so that's going to get you points on the junior golf scoreboard, and it's going to be a lot of that. Hefty Brad just joined. A lot of it will be your differential, your scoring differential. A lot of coaches go straight to that.
Awesome. Well, I'll let Chris take it back over, and we'll get to the next segment.
Thanks, everyone. Good questions.
Awesome. Trillium, thank you so much. What great insight. And like I said, I'm sure there'll be plenty of other questions that can come through to you personally over the next few days. So we'll make sure to get you your contact info to everybody. So we're really excited to have our next presenter on, and Trillium's going to hang on with us too and act as our moderator with Brad Faxon. So we are so excited to welcome Brad, and quick background introduction, not that he needs one. 8-time PGA Tour winner, 2-time member of the Ryder Cup team. For our Northeast folks who are joining us, Brad grew up in Rhode Island. He played his college golf at Furman University in South Carolina, where he was a 2-time All-American. Pretty impressive. And obviously recently he was part of the Fox Sports golf broadcasting crew doing some of the major championships as of late. So Brad, thank you so much for joining us here tonight, and it's so awesome to have you. I'll let you and Trillium take it away.
Thank you, Chris. And Trillium, I apologize for being late. I'm out in Dallas, and I know everybody here is in high school, but I'm helping my sophomore-to-be daughter at SMU move in, and we had a very eventful day. It's pretty fun as a parent being here when your kid goes to school, but I am on Central Standard Time, and I messed this whole thing up, so I apologize for that.
You didn't mess anything up. This group had about a million questions. I just got riddled with questions. So it's been good. And I think everybody is really jazzed to have you on. And so we're going to have a conversation. So this is good. How you doing, Brad?
I'm doing great, Trillium. Everything's going well. I've been doing a little bit of television for Sky Sports this year over in the UK, and that's been really fun. They need somebody with an American accent over there, I guess. But that's been fun. I've been coaching a few players, you know that, and trying to do a little golf course design. So got my fingers kind of a little bit everywhere.
I'm so happy to hear all of that. Now, the audience we have on, we've got quite a few coaches. We've got quite a few parents of players, and we have quite a few players, high school players. Gotcha. So I wanted to focus on kind of your earlier days, because you're one of the few. You're the 1 in a million, 1 in 2 million that had made it from a really successful junior golfer. So I just learned that you were the Haskins Award winner. That's the best junior in the country, all the way to tour player, and not just a couple years on tour, like a solid tour player with wins and all kinds of stuff. So how did those early days, in other words, what was the formula so that the other kids and other coaches can hear? What did you do?
Now, when you say early days, as a junior golfer before I went to college, in those early days?
High school, 7th grade, okay. 8th grade.
I would say, I think the things that could maybe help or relate to people that are in the audience. I grew up with a father that was a very good golfer, and it was in my family. My grandfather played golf. My grandfather started all kinds of caddy camps on Cape Cod. In the town where I lived in Rhode Island, Barrington, Rhode Island, there was a Donald Ross golf course that was a fantastic place, Rhode Island Country Club. And as a 12-year-old, I started caddying. at this club, riding my bike up early in the mornings to make some money. And that kind of got me started really kind of liking the game. But what really helped back then is I learned to read greens for the members. And, that was, to me, I learned how to read a green. I wasn't taught how to read a green. And I think that's an important phrase, right? I learned how to read greens. I wasn't taught how to. Now, in today's world where there's all this technology where you can go and just view anything on YouTube or Golf Channel, I learned it more organically. And the place Rhode Island Country Club had, wasn't great weather up there all the time. The course had greens with a lot of slope. And we played year round up there, except for when there was snow on the ground. So I played in awful conditions. And those were things that helped me, having everything not handed to me. I never had a formal lesson at all when I was in high school or younger. The golf pro at my club was a great guy named Fred Bruno. And Fred Bruno was a typical guy, keep your left arm straight, keep your head down. And I was kind of shipped off to the golf course in the afternoons. Caddies could play then. Mondays, caddies could play. And I played a lot of golf with my friends, and I pretended that I was great golfers before me. I pretended I was playing against Jack Nicklaus or Tom Watson, and that's how I got my start, and that really helped.
That's cool. And so you were sort of a perfect mix of, you had access to golf course, but you had a lot of adversity. So you wanted to be there, but you weren't pushed into it. But you had access to play as much as you wanted.
I did. I think a couple things that really helped too is because it was so seasonal up there, I played other sports. I played baseball. I played hockey. My father exposed me to, both my parents did, to other sports. I skied a little bit. I played a lot of, tennis. I was pretty good at ping pong, believe it or not. But a lot of which I think is great for eye-hand coordination, short game. And you and I know now from all the research at the Titleist Performance Institute by Greg Rose and Dave Phillips, how important it is that kids play other sports. And it frightens me now at the early specialization that some parents insist kids have at such a young age.
I'm loving that you just said that. I want to bounce off of that too. So when you were on the high school team, what motivated you to work hard?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a pretty funny story. We had a golf coach at Barrington High School. His name was Don McGregor, and Don McGregor was not only the golf coach, he was the wrestling coach, and he was 4 feet 11 inches tall. He was the biology and anatomy teacher at our school, and he didn't know anything about golf. And all he knew was that the lowest score was the best score. So when you went to qualify, he didn't care if you hit it sideways or if you hit every green and two-putted. He just wanted the lowest scores. And what was funny about my first attempt to qualify, the high school in Barrington where I lived was divided where it was 10th, 11th, and 12th was in one building, and on the other side of town was 7th, 8th, and 9th. And my first year in high school, 1979, was the first year that 9th graders, freshmen, were allowed to play varsity sports in our state. So the coach, Don McGregor, never put any signs up in the halls. We didn't have phone or internet, right? You had to see a sign to show that there was a high school qualifying starting, and we played in the spring. It would have been the end of March, early April. So I missed the first day of qualifying, and I walked up to, I was in tears, and I got up there and I said, Coach Mack, everybody called him. I said, Coach McGregor, I want to play on the team. I think I'm good enough. He goes, okay, you have to play tomorrow, and you have to play the number one man on the team. And if you beat him, you can make the team. If not, you're off. And I'm like, oh,
why was he such a jerk?
I don't know. I was so nervous. I was probably 5'8" and 5'7", and this guy was like 6'4", 6'5". Ken Klein was his name, and he bashed the ball, and I beat him 7-6. So I destroyed him, and I got done, and the coach says you have to beat him again tomorrow. So
What's wrong with this coach? What's wrong with this
guy? I ended up beating him pretty badly the next day, where I think he quit. I don't know if I should say this, but he sat down on the bench by the 7th tee and started to roll a joint. And he says, I'm not playing anymore with you. So he never made the team. And that's how I got on the high school team.
Hey, that is a really funny story. Have you even told that story before? That's funny.
Yeah, I really haven't told that much, but that's the truth. And we had
Okay.
five kids on our high school team that none of us were seniors. We had one junior, two sophomores, two freshmen, and we won the state high schools 3 of the next 4 years.
Now, how much of that was coaching? How much of it was your own, you as a team? How much it was the chemistry among your team?
Right. So as I said, Coach McGregor, he was really just the guy that drove the bus. He actually collected the balls that we used in a match so we can use them again the next match. We weren't even allowed to keep it. We got 2 golf balls for a round, and they were Titleist, of course. But so no, there was zero coaching. He wouldn't know anything. He would look up at you because he was so short, and instead of asking you, what did you shoot? He'd go, how'd you hit? And he'd say, how'd you hit? And I'd go, well, I shot 37 or 38. I'd say, I hit it pretty good. He goes, no, how'd you hit? And he didn't even know how to ask you what you scored. So it was, playing with my friends, and we played golf. We had no idea what we were doing.
This is not the coaching. This is like zero of it was the coaching.
Not in high school. There was no coaching in high school.
So then how did you end up at Furman?
Another funny story. I had my grandfather that started these caddy camps. He really wanted me to stay up north and go to some, Ivy League school. And I was probably not a good enough student to go to many Ivy League schools, but I wanted to play golf. And he used to vacation down in Sea Island, Georgia, and there was a resort there called Sea Palms, and he lived next to some executive at Furman. And he learned about Furman, said, Brad, you should look at Furman. I had never heard of Furman. And I started looking at it. I went down and said, this is a beautiful campus golf course on campus. And I got a $400 scholarship offer to go to Furman. And the only reason is I was playing in the National Junior Tournament, the Insurance Youth Classic, which I'm not even sure is going on anymore. And I saw a guy with a Furman shirt. I'd never seen a Furman shirt, and it was the coach. So I actually recruited myself, and I accepted the $400 scholarship, and that summer he got fired. So I ended up with another guy that had never given a golf lesson to anybody. This guy was an assistant caddy master at a local club that the president of Furman just hired because he felt bad for him. And the most complicated lesson I ever got from him was you got to move your ball position back half a ball. That was it.
Wow. So do you think that being on a team in high school and in college, like tell me more about your experiences as far as what that did to you as a player and how important it was to you as a player?
As a high school player, I thought, first of all, professional golf is 99% of the time is individual sport. So I liked my high school teammates, and we just played golf against each other. We had constant competitions against each other, whether it was having putting competitions, we had a little bunker and short game practice green by the range. We had a nice range back then, considering. So everything we did was trying to beat each other up. We tried to have, not literally, but just try to win a match. And then we'd play all kinds of different games. And I think that's a long lost art today. And interestingly enough, the first time I was asked to help Rory McIlroy with his putting, about 3.5 years ago, at the end of our couple hours that we spent together that day, I said, let's have a putting match. And we had a putting match, and I'll tell you what the format was, because he was on one hole, I was on the other. We were putting at the same time, to the opposite hole. And if we made an ace, we'd both switch and putt in the other direction, first to 5. Now, this particular day at the Bears Club, it was windy. The 2 closest holes were like 30 feet, so it was taking a while. But I got up to a 4-2 lead against Rory, and I said, hey, if I beat you, if I beat you, you got to tell everybody, and you go win this week at Bay Hill, you got to tell everybody that Brad Faxon beat you at a putting contest. And he kind of took his head a little bit, smiled, and then he made like 3 of the next 5. And I'm like, I'm like, well, that's Rory McIlroy. So he got so excited, and he high-fived me. He says, when I win this week, I'm going to tell everybody I beat you in a putting contest. And I said, hey, listen. And then he said, it's amazing. He goes, and this was 2018. He goes, I haven't had a putting contest since 2010, he said. And I looked at him incredulously. I said, first of all, how do you remember it was 2010? He goes, oh, that was easy. It was against Tiger Woods at the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. And I said, wow. I said, and you've never had a putting contest since? And he goes, no. So that's become one of the things we do a lot, is just putt against each other. And, when I go to the limited amount of tour events I go to watch certain players, I don't see many players having putting contests. I see a lot of gadgets out there, right? I see players with all kinds of technology out there practicing. And I know there's a time.
Yeah, that's shocking to hear that. When you're thinking about how you're going to get better and you're playing against each other, I'm just listening to you describe like the perfect scenario of your teammates were good players and you're playing against each other, and that you're pushing each other and you're playing games. Those games, those contests were basically getting you ready to play on a golf course. I don't hear you sitting on the driving range hitting 20 shots in a row.
So the other thing we did, we had on the range, like I said, a small green that was kind of a target green where you could actually go out about maybe 150 yards and hit into this green. And it was a small green with a bunker, and it was dangerous because it was right between the practice range. It was on the side of the practice range and the landing area of the 18th hole. And it was right on the Narragansett Bay, so it was always windy. And we would have closest to the pin contest from anywhere from 20 yards out to 150 yards. Back then, 150 yards was a good 6-iron. And then when we finished that putting contest, that 6-iron contest, and we would go back in, and instead of picking the balls up with a little plucker, we would chip them off, and we'd have chipping contests. So that's what we did, and we did it a lot. And we did it in bad weather. And people, a lot of times, Julian will say, how did you learn to be a good golfer living in Rhode Island? And the first thing I said, well, the three best golfers of my time when I was watching were Jack Nicklaus, who's from Ohio, Arnold Palmer was from Pennsylvania, and Tom Watson was from Kansas City. And those were all climates where at off season, if you were going to play golf, you were going to play in adverse conditions. And if you didn't play golf, you played other sports, which then again helped you for your golf later in your career, but you didn't know that then.
Yeah. There are a couple of questions I'm looking at that everything you're saying. There's some stuff that I just did not expect to hear you say. I didn't know this background about your high school playing and your college playing. So here's one question. It's about focus from Keith. Your players and caddies spend a lot of time defining the shot they're trying to hit. How do we teach younger players to focus and accomplish this ability to hit the planned shot?
That's a fun question for me to answer. And early on my professional career, I spent a lot of time with Bob Rotella, the very well-known sports psychologist now, who was not well-known when I went to see him. As a matter of fact, it was looked upon as a weakness that you'd have a sports psych or a mental coach or whatever you would call him. And Rotella early on was big into picturing a shot. And we weren't really trained to picture a shot one particular way, because how certain people generate an image, how certain players generate that image can be different, but it's never wrong, right? Everybody's individual, like in their golf swings. There are always things that are kind of unique to that player. So having a target, and that target sometimes might be very specific. Sometimes it might be a little bit more general, depending on what shot you were trying to play. Sometimes you could see that arc or the path of the ball, the flight of the ball. But we were never allowed to hit the shot until you saw an image. And what got even more detailed later on, and I think this is something that recently has helped Rory. He had a visit to Rotella again right prior to Quail Hollow when he won. Rotella sent him a text and said, look, let's make this game a game where you see a shot and react and allow your body to react to that image that you see. When he wasn't playing his best Trillium, he was like a lot of us when you've gotten mechanical or too many thoughts, you're trying to make a swing hit a shot rather than the other way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was pretty clear to me immediately. And all the greatest players I've ever spent time with, whether it was playing with them, studying them, working with them, PGA, LPGA, and senior tour players, they always talked about how when they played their best, it seemed easy. They didn't second guess themselves. They trusted that first instinct, and that first instinct is always based on trust. And there was never I always call it the what ifs. Well, what if the wind doesn't, blow and help it curve, all those things. The what ifs are what can be, killers of the game of golf.
Yeah, because they're endless, right? You just wind yourself into a little pretzel.
Exactly.
What would you tell the 14 or 15-year-old Brad Faxon?
Well, I haven't been asked that question. So if you're referring to the 14 and 15-year-olds that are staying there, I think having instruction is important. I think how you have instruction and how much instruction you have is also really a key to your development. I think a few things that I question, a lot of times when players look like they're getting pretty good and they've worked with the local professional at their home club and they get where they're developing a lot of talent, a lot of times parents want to, I want to take them to the next level, and they bring them somewhere else to somewhere new. I don't see that as always the right answer. Trillium, if you were helping somebody, I know you've helped so many junior golfers around your club at Woodmont, I wouldn't say if a kid all of a sudden got to be a top 50 player in the NHSGA that it's time to go to somebody else, right? I think it's like players look at Colin Morikawa and what he's done with Rick. I mean, and it's not like Rick's worked with other tour players, right? They have a great relationship together. So finding that relationship early is important, getting to know each other, because you can't change a person's life in a 1-hour lesson. You've got to have this relationship last a long time.
I think that's good. Favorite putting drill? Jason Black asked, what's your favorite putting drill?
So that's another good question. And drill is a word I don't like to use because the connotation of drill to me is intense, and it makes me feel like you have to try hard to do that. And I see all kinds of tour players now doing drills. And certainly now, as coaching has become more of a big occupation for so many, and golf schools, you have to come up with kind of drills to do. I hit tons of putts from 3 and 4 and 5 feet as a little kid. Tons of those putts trying to make where I wore out the spot where my feet were. I think those are important to do. As you get older, it's harder on your back to do all that stuff. But I do like stuff that I have an instructor friend named Jason Bale. He calls things like this imagination playground, where I'll give you a couple that I really like now because they're fun. But could you make 6 6-foot putts with 6 different clubs where you could only use your putter once? I think that's a great fun. And then there's a psychology to that, because would you use your putter first or would you use it last? What clubs would you use? But I think all those things help develop eye-hand coordination and in different ways. That's one that I really have found to be pretty good. And my other favorite thing that I think a lot of tour players have liked is if you could get on a green that has hopefully a good amount of speed to it, 6 or 7 feet where you got some slope, and mark the spot where you're going to hit the putt from so it's consistent. So use a Sharpie to just put a little dot down there so the ball's always on the same place. Then get one of those little plastic ball markers. And can you, on the first time, put the marker down in the right spot halfway to the hole where the ball has to go over to go in at normal speed. Once you get that, and remember, you only get one chance on the greens on the course in a round, so get good at reading a green. But once you do that, then take 3 balls, and can you make one at a slower pace above that, a firmer pace underneath it, and then that normal piece over it? And sometimes, depending on the greens or the markers that you use, once you get that marker in the right place, then you can put a little Sharpie circle down there so it doesn't bump it offline, because that'll tick you off.
That's really great. That's a really great one. I know we're at time. Brad.
Yeah, we're good. Hey, Brad. Hey, Trillium. Thanks again for everything, Brad. You have some. I think you have some groupies on the call here. We have a couple of questions that came in.
Well,
The
listen,
one
I was
from
late. I can stay on for another 5 minutes if you want.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll have a couple more questions. So Trevor Peck, I guess his coach is named Chuck White, who's a friend of yours you went to Furman with. He wanted to
Yeah.
know, has he ever taught you anything? And then there's also another high school student named Jack Gregory. His coach is named Jim Roy. Um, and I guess you know Jim as well. So high school. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of high school coaches. I think you need to become a high school coach because clearly a bunch of your friends are high school coaches and they're sending your info to their students.
I love that. So Jim Roy played golf at Florida Southern when I was at Furman. His son Kevin now is on the Corn Ferry Tour and starts tomorrow the 3 tournaments where he's in Boise, Idaho. I talked to Kevin 2 days ago, and I've been helping him a little bit with putting. And when you talk about putting, it always gets into attitude and mindset about everything, not just the putting stroke. And Jim Roy and I, in 1983, when we went through the 6 rounds we had to play at the TPC at Sawgrass, I remember we made this comment that everybody was happy at the beginning of the week, and then when it got to be the last couple of rounds, everybody's head was down at their feet. Nobody said hello to anybody. Nobody talked to anybody. Everybody was so nervous. It was pretty funny. But Jim Roy has continued with a successful financial career to be a good instructor. He's doing that for fun after retiring, and boy, he's good. And by the way, he was a great basketball player, one of the best free throw shooters in the world. I saw him make over 100 free throws in a row. And things like that are incredible for your putting because I think there's a huge positive relationship between hitting putts on a putting green and shooting free throws.
Well, I think you brought up a couple points. So hitting free throws, playing ping pong, doing other things. I think making drills fun. There's so much that coaches do that can really help students just become better golfers without just saying, hey, practice and grind and work so hard. And there's so much you can do. So I think a lot of these points that you make, for these coaches, that you got to make the game fun. You make the game fun, people will enjoy it, and drills become drills or practices, and you can imagine things they're more fun even though you're doing work.
Well, if you started playing ping pong or table tennis, as I called it, and you got good enough, then you can win the team championship in the Ryder Cup room. When that happens every year, it gets competitive with players like Kuchar and Phil and Tiger. But I also think there's a real relationship. If you can slice a ball or hit top spin, it's a lot of the times when you have to hit a spinny shot with a sand wedge, you're nicking the side of the ball with a face that's open. It's a lot like learning to hit a spinny shot with table tennis. So those things can transfer into good short game. It certainly helped for me, that's for sure.
Fantastic. That's great insight. And I mean, obviously goes without saying, but Trillium and Brad, just want to say thank you from obviously all of us here at the NHSGA, and it goes without saying, but all the attendees as well. So just a great way to kick off the school year. And again, we really appreciate you taking the time to meet with the next generation of golfers, right? And all these high school coaches and folks out there who are trying to shape and mold the next generation of the game. So that goes without saying. But thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thanks, Chris. And let me just say, I've gotten to know Trillium pretty well the last few years, doing a lot of events down at the PGA show for the PGA American, especially with Titleist. And she's a top 50 teacher in the country again. She teaches a couple neighbors of mine down in Florida, and they love her. And if you follow her on Instagram, because she's always got cute and great little advice for stuff. And I've tried a bunch of the things that she's done, and it's wonderful, Trillium, to have you host this for us.
Thanks, Brad. It's an honor to be talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Go
Thanks,
practice.
Everyone.
Hey,
Go for
exactly right. Good advice. Thanks, you too, and best of luck, Brad. Obviously, with your daughter for the school year as well too. So
Apologize for blowing that time there at the beginning.
it's okay. Hey, thank you both so much, and hey, special thanks to Titleist, for making this possible as well. We appreciate their support, and like I said, having you guys on. So fantastic, awesome.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. All right. Well, that was a fun way to kick things off tonight, right? So, what a fantastic start. And yeah, again, for everybody out there, like I said, especially Titleist and FootJoy making really the first segment possible. And for those of you who are already part of it, make sure to join Team Titleist. Chris Hart will put that in the chat there too. It's a really, really awesome program, just staying up to date on news, events, things of that nature. So be sure to join Team Titleist if you haven't already. So good deal. And with that, I'm really excited to have some great friends and really friends of not only us at the NHSGA, partners of ours as well. Two gentlemen from Junior Golf Hub, who some of you probably are familiar with, maybe some are not. And we have Rick Dowling, who is the director of customer success with the hub, and also from my neck of the woods, Danny Randolph played his college golf at actually one of our rival schools in South Bend, Indiana. So it's great to have Danny on, and not only a great player in his own right, they both are. Don't let Rick fool you. But actually, Danny also coached at Texas Christian University as well, and great tenure of coaching himself. And want to thank you guys obviously for the partnership you've had. I know there's a lot of folks on here tonight with questions about college golf, right? Where do I start? There's going to be freshmen in here. There's going to be seniors. So, Rick, I'll let you guys take it away, and I'll get those slides pulled up for you here too. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Hey, Danny. Yeah, we're really, really proud to be a supporting partner of the National High School Golf Association and provide some really good education and tools for all the families out there. We know it's not easy. There's a lot of questions. So we really want to make it comfortable and streamline all the things that go into being a junior golfer, or hopeful junior golfer on the road to college golf. So yeah, tonight we're going to cover a few things. I noticed some of the questions in the chat already. I think with some of the information we'll cover, I think we'll try to answer some of those for you. But just an overview of what we do. Like I said, we're an app platform designed for the junior golfer, their parent, as well as for college coaches. So we really want to, like I said, simplify all the things that go into this process, from discovering colleges that match you or where you fit in the landscape, helping you get exposure and market yourself to programs, keeping you in line, knowing what's next, and even the steps after that on this pathway to college golf. So as you see some of our tools here, for every new member, we do a instant match colleges. You'll get instantly matched with 10 colleges that are optimal fits for you based on where you are right now with scoring, academics, geography, and all that kind of stuff. You get a player development index coach guided assessment. If you want to know where you're headed, you got to know where you are right now, where you're starting. And this is a great baseline to kind of quantify your abilities in the golf course as well as physically as an athlete. We work to verify all the results on all the resumes on our profiles. Coaches love verified results, and everyone's playing tournaments out there. So we'll load tournament data for you and verify that information. We have a great college program finder. The college golf landscape is a big one. About 2,200 programs out there of all shapes and sizes with great details that surround them. And we give you a window into that vast landscape and really good filters and tools to kind of cut through that clutter and find ones that are good for you. Danny's working hard with the college coach community for the hub, trying to get everyone at the college level using the tool. As you can see here, we have about 1,000 coaches using the platform proactively to find athletes that fit their program and what they're trying to do at their respective programs. And the last few things here are some really good tools for any junior golfer. The Finder and Calendar, tournament scheduling can kind of be paralysis by analysis with so many options out there trying to optimize for rankings, location, budgeting. This gives you a really easy way to kind of have a formula for your tournament schedule, and then a good way to keep track of what's coming up and what you've been shooting. We have a recruiting kind of library, expert advice from the best who've done it before, played, coached on all these major milestones, college golf scholarships, communicating with coaches, NCAA rules and regulations, and all that jazz. So just a quick overview of what we do. We're really passionate about supporting the community, especially those who aspire to play college golf. We've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years now, thousands of people moving on to college golf from high school, making that jump successfully. And we hope we can support you guys, the rising stars of the next generation. We can kind of go to the next slide here, Chris. So Danny, why don't we go into the college golf checklist? This is one of the tools on the platform that our members have access to. It's a very clear-cut way to kind of stay on track. There's things that the family can do every year of high school, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. And I know we probably have a wide variety of students and parents on tonight. So just a few quick examples off the top of my head. Freshman year, right off the bat, if you're going to play college golf, you can register for the Eligibility Center for the NCAA and NAIA, and make sure you're taking the required academic courses to keep you in line to be a student athlete. Similarly, sophomore year, you can begin to prep for standardized testing, SAT, ACT, for international students, the TOEFL. A big thing that happens sophomore year as well, June 15th, the communication window officially opens up where athletes can start communicating with coaches. A few months later, the student and the coach can actually have contact. And then, junior year, you're starting to get into more tedious items on the checklist. But for parents out there, it's coming into the financial questions. What's the plan going to be for my target schools? You can get a pre-read at the target schools, courtesy of the coach in the admissions department. You can get the FAFSA completed, the CSS profiles submitted, start applying for outside scholarships. So those are just a few things that the checklist kind of outlines for you, and you can literally check off with your junior golfer as you go along. Danny, maybe you want to go into a little bit about the college research and the tournaments from a college coach perspective would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you everyone for having us. Like Rick said, we're really thankful for the time to be on here, as well as our relationships with the other sponsors and people tonight. So like I said, we appreciate all that, and we're here for you through that process. There's a lot that goes into it. Rick went over a lot right there, but as a college coach over the years, you're always looking for student athletes that, as Rick said, I'm going to go back real quick on the academics. They're doing a good job academically. It's a huge deal because nearly every school is going to give out academic money, and then they'll obviously give athletic money after that. So that's a big start. Concerning the tournaments, coaches are really looking for student athletes that are going out and playing in good, solid tournaments. That doesn't mean you have to play in the highest level AJGA tournaments. There's so many good tours out there where you're playing. Sometimes people may not be able to travel as much. That's fine. And if you stay local, but you're playing good tournaments, you're playing good courses, you're putting together good scores, that's what they're looking for, is just a lot of consistency, a lot of playing and competing and being able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very well said, Danny. And a quick rule of thumb that's available on the checklist is actually the number of tournaments and the kind of tournaments that every athlete can kind of refer to each year. For example, freshman year, we suggest anywhere from 8 to 12 tournaments. And believe it or not, 80% of those tournaments should be at the local level. There's kind of this crawl, walk, run philosophy with tournaments. And we see a lot of families kind of put the cart before the horse where they jump to the regional or national level a little too soon. There's a lot of foundational experiences that need to be had at the local level early on in the process, whether that's 7th, 8th grade, even into freshman year. That number and percentage will slowly go down, but you'll still have a balance throughout the sophomore, junior, senior years of a local event. It's important to kind of go into those events with the mindset of I'm going to go win. I've had experience at the local level, but also balance those out with regional tests and national tests, which might be the U.S. Junior, some invitationals that you can get into as a junior. So all that information is contained in the checklist to kind of make it simple. All I'm doing as a family is referring to the checklist. Freshman year, I can check all the boxes. Sophomore year, I can check all the boxes. If you need help with certain items on the checklist, the good news is we have resources in the tool that kind of help you execute on the knowledge that's in the checklist. And people like Danny and myself can kind of also give you some helpful guidance along the way.
Another thing too on this slide, as everyone sees, is yes, there's some things that are kind of the same in every year, but one of those really important ones is the resume. So it really does start your freshman year, if not even your 8th grade year, but it continues, and you need to make sure that that's always being updated. And it doesn't matter, if it's not always your best scores. You need to put in all your scores because that shows who you are. Because the coaches are going to find out, one way or another. And so one of the things that Junior Golf Hub does a really good job of is we have these profiles and they're updated. There's a lot of information. The coaches really love what we do. They find our system to be very, very simple for them in the sense of effective and giving a lot of information. So the resume is really huge. And as you can see, every year, you want to make sure that you're always updating that. And so that they can find it, they can look at it, and then they know, the things that you're doing.
Perfect. Yeah, so if anyone's looking to get this checklist, we can send it to you in the mail if you'd like, but if you'd also want to join the Junior Golf Hub membership, this is one of the first things you get as a new member. You'll get exactly relative to where you are, your junior golfer is on the road to college golf in high school, you'll get that year's checklist delivered to you right at the onset. So maybe we'll cover all the questions at the end, Chris, but if you want to move on to the next one, we can move on to the next slide.
Yeah, I have some questions here, Rick, if you want, and then we can move on to the next slide. So there was one actually. So Sarah just wanted to know, is there a fee to join the hub? And then Maria is a member. She said the resource is valuable, but how much does the hub cost?
Oh, cool. That's great. Yeah, the hub is an annual subscription of $129.
Okay.
Super easy to start. Just go right to our website, juniorgolfhub.com, or you can download the app and get started right from there.
Paul Fitzgerald wants to know, this is a tough question, but is there a good score on a consistent basis where you'll get noticed by college teams?
Yeah, we're going to answer that one on the next slide when we talk about the signer study. So maybe we can, hopefully we'll cover that one if that's okay with you.
Yeah, we can hold that one. Oksana wanted to know, is there a list of colleges that are interested in trying to recruit or female players?
Yeah, and Danny, maybe you want to talk about how the app actually works for colleges that are interested in athletes that they can find on the site. But yeah, there's almost, I think it's 950 college programs for females. All of them are proactively looking to fill roster spots each year. Now, how the hub works, and Danny, maybe you can explain better than I on the coach side, but they get a full access to our full list of athletes and all the information on each of their profiles, and they can filter based on their academic preferences or requirements, scoring information, their preferences on the type of scores that the athlete shoots, where they're located, what their interests are, and then they can also check out all the information that's contained on their resume, swing videos, personal goals, some assessment information about the athleticism of this athlete. So that's kind of how it's almost like LinkedIn for the college coach and the prospective student athlete. That's kind of how the site works. So a benefit of coming onto the platform would be that you're entering the community and you'll be immediately searchable by all these coaches seeking female golfers, male golfers.
Cool. I'll let you keep going with the presentation. I have a few more questions I can ask at the end.
Okay, cool. So another thing that all of our members get is our annual signer report. And this is very topical, I think, for tonight because we have a lot of high school golfers in the audience and their parents. And this is, I guess, a look at the group of people who graduate in 2021 and are moving on to play college golf. We studied and took a deeper look at what their scoring information looked like throughout the high school years. So here you see all these results from, as Danny said before, all over the country, not just the big national tours or the big national events, but every single event that was posted on their profile throughout high school. And you see for the green line, that's the girls golfers, female golfers, and then the gray line are the boys, male golfers. So to answer the target scoring, I guess this is an average look at almost 1,000 signers that we tracked on the hub. But this is the average kind of, I guess, the line that everyone draws. So of course, they're in the report, the full report outlines there's obviously extremes on both ends of this average. For example, I think in D1 we saw someone in the mid 80s for boys and even the mid 90s for girls, and then lower, of course, almost in the high 60s and low 70s for girls. But these are the median scores if you're looking to play college golf. And the interesting thing about this graphic is that I think volatility and fluctuation is normal. I think people have this painted view that development should be very streamlined and it's always going to be heading the right direction. That's okay, but I think development is like this. This is normal to go up and down each year. The athlete is growing, learning, playing more difficult golf courses, which are all good things and normal things. But it's okay to go up and down. I don't know, Danny, if you have anything to add here from your perspective.
Yeah, I think as you get into these situations in the process is that, you're never going to be able to see every college school and score and all that kind of stuff. And so as you start to break down the scores, so to kind of answer the question about, the basis of consistent scores or what they're looking for is one thing you can do on research is to go to the schools that you're interested in. And most of the time, those schools have all their statistics, of multiple years or the last year, and you'll see who their best player is, their second best player, third, all the way down to maybe their seventh best player. And so as you go into that, just know that that information is there by just doing some research, and then also know that a coach is always trying to get a little bit better. So if someone's, let's say their fifth score is, 77, and, your son or daughter is close to 77, then they probably have a chance. But if they're at 82 or 83, that coach may not look as much just because they already have, some players doing that. So typically you'd want to be a little bit better, than the fourth, fifth, or sixth player on that average, and that'll help you. I think that'll be something that, as you look at it, you can kind of eliminate some, you can add some. All that stuff can be really good research for you to do, and you can find out what those schools are looking for, because it doesn't really matter what the division is. Just because you're, let's say, Division I doesn't mean it's always better than Division II or always better than Division III or even NAI. Always the top schools, typically have very good players. And so it doesn't matter what level that is. And like I said, you can do the research to find that kind of stuff out. But coaches are always looking for, players that can make their team a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Danny. And to kind of answer Logan's question here, is this just D1 or is it all the signers? This is a high level look at all the signers. The signer report is almost 15 pages long, and it does contain more information that goes into each association. So what was the average for D1, D2, D3, and for boys and girls, NAI and junior colleges, and then also the high and low for each, which gives you a little more perspective. So what Danny said is very right, and what those numbers show will say that there's good golfers across the board. But the thing that really comes back and matters most is you finding your right fit within that landscape. It's a very broad landscape of all these different attributes for all these different programs. But you're going to be spending 4 years there, potentially even more. So it's all about you checking all the boxes at those programs, which is really counts the most at the end. I think we have one more slide. This is a case study of one of the signers. So this is a really cool chart because we were talking about development earlier, how important it is to understand that it's going to go up and down. This is one of the signers, and she ended up at a very nice D2 school in Florida. But if you look in the chart, freshman year of high school, she was up in I believe 105 scoring average, and then made a very, very big jump just at the beginning of her sophomore year, almost down in the low 70s, and then kind of went back and forth a little bit, almost kind of normalized itself, and that's where she is now. But if you look at this chart maybe 2 or 3 years from now, I can almost guarantee, and Danny will probably agree with me, that she'll probably end up going back down again, just because she's going to learn so much. She's learned so much in junior golf, and will learn more in college golf. She's due to kind of recorrect and go back down in terms of her scoring average. But this is just, I think, a cool story to say that it doesn't really matter where you start, so long as you prioritize the right things, the elements that contribute to success. And she found a great home for herself in Florida at a D2 school. And this is just one of the signer studies that we did. There's, I think, a handful on the boys and the girls that show all these different school types and D1, D2, D3 across the board, where they started, where they ended up, that stuff. So it's really cool information. I think it'll give the family some great perspective on what the journey really looks like, because there is a lot of hearsay out there. But in all reality, everyone's journey is different. So we try to kind of provide some objective information about that information.
Thanks again, Rick and Dan. I think this is great information. Obviously, the Hub's an awesome resource. We had some questions here. So Sarah wanted to know about, you just talked through some case studies, but she wanted to know how many athletes have gotten into college golf due to the Hub. Well, obviously, it's the students' play, but can you share some examples, or do you have a general sense of that?
Yes, the answer is thousands. Since our inception in 2017, had almost 18,000 people use the Hub on their road to college golf, or as high school golfers, just playing competitive golf, using the tools. And for those many years of graduating classes, we've had thousands of people move on to college golf. And we have a page dedicated on our site for all those people, their success stories. And we do publish the signer report each year to kind of share the findings that you can learn from each graduating class. So we're happy to share that with everybody.
This might be Danny or Rick. Might be for Danny when you were a coach, but do you see any value from a recruiting standpoint of college golf camps? What are your thoughts on college golf camps?
Yeah, I do.
Let Danny take that one.
Yeah, I do feel that there's value there because you get in front of coaches. So not only is it the camp that the school is at, but typically there'll be other coaches come and help. So maybe an assistant from another coach an assistant from another school, a head coach from another school. And so anytime that you can be in front of college coaches, then you can obviously catch their eye. Another thing is you have the access to ask them questions, spend time with them. You can ask them a question like, where do you see me as a player? They may say, hey, you're a high level Division I player, or you're a Division II player, or this is what we would look at. And I think it's just really good to get that information. So then from someone who does this for a living, what the answer is. And it's not from, a family friend or something that says, oh, you're this. And that may not be obviously as true. So yeah, I think college camps are really important. You can get to one. And I think those will start to be a lot more, now that hopefully, COVID is reduced and all the things that are going on in the world.
Yes. Speaking of that, Michael, and I saw it a couple times. There's been the same question a few times, but how has COVID affected the recruiting process? Anything trends you're both seeing out there, and what to expect for students who are going through it right now?
Yeah, COVID has definitely, created some changes. I think every school is a little bit different. So some schools will keep someone around for their fifth year. I mean, that's taking some scholarship money, but that fifth year, that person may be in master's work. So that's a little bit of a less cost. There's some schools out there who committed to someone for 4 years. And they said, if you want to come back for your fifth year, then you'll have to pay no matter what. They could have been the best player on the team. but they'll say that, we've only committed to you for 4 years, and that's what we're going to do, so that they can kind of stay in their normal cycle. So I think as you go into this process, parents and high school coaches and people who are listening with this, obviously, like I said earlier, is academics are huge. Every coach wants to give as much academic money as possible, so then they can divvy up the rest of their money. Obviously Division III is a little bit different, but at Division I, II, and NAI. So that's important. And I think as you get into the process, you'll find here, and maybe this next year to 2 years, is that you may only get a little bit of money athletically. So let's say like $5,000 or $3,000 or something like that. And then as time goes on, that money can go up based on, people who are on the team or people who have graduated, and they move on, and you can maybe get some of their money and those kind of things. But I've heard a lot of coaches talk about the fact of, come to our school, we'll give you as much as we can early as like a freshman, and then hopefully you can earn more, or you'll be able to get more, just because people will graduate, those fifth-year seniors, or like there's the term super senior, somebody that might have been there for 6 years. So if you're going to be there for 6 years, maybe you could be a doctor by that point, I guess. But there's a lot of people doing those kind of things, and so it's a kind of a chess game of, not only for the coaches but also for the parents and players.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a really, some great points there, Danny. And one of the things for those of you who are not aware on the call, besides the National High School Golf Association, we run the National Collegiate Club Golf Association. There was a question on here from Nicholas. He said, can you go to a college and potentially walk on later if you can't get that spot? And it's a great question, and we see that often, where a lot of students will go to whatever particular college they want to go to. They can play club golf, they can perform, do well in tournaments, and use that to walk onto the varsity team. So I'll put that in the chat, just nccga.org. But that is a great option for many students if they're not looking to play varsity, or they can't get that spot freshman year or sophomore year. There's still hope they may be able to get it later in their college career, by playing in tournaments and shooting good scores. And then just the last question, I think this is a really important one, for Rick or Danny, but how much do your high school scores matter? Obviously junior tournament scores and the best tournaments you can play in, US Junior, PGA, Junior, AJGA are the best, but how do state championships get incorporated into recruiting, and how should high school students and coaches utilize their high school scores for recruiting?
Yeah, I'll let Danny answer it from a coach perspective, because he might actually have some details about how they might weight certain events. But I'm going to go on a tangent here about it doesn't matter the way you might think about events. What really matters is you should play in everything you can, because that's what's going to set you up for success, and you're going to develop as a player. You should play as many. High school is just as important as something like the U.S. Amateur. Every possible interaction you can have with the game in a competitive environment is important. I think Brad said that early. You got to test yourself. You got to compete. You got to make it fun. Every event is so important. So I wouldn't put this kind of end result or a coach's perspective or a rankings perspective on where I should go play. It's the opposite. It should be you should play everything you can, given financial means, travel, not burning out, of course, physically, but every event is important. That's just my stance on that. And Danny, maybe you can answer from a college coach perspective on a little bit more information.
So my perspective is going to come different than maybe what you think I'm going to say next, is that I'm very aware as a college coach that high school tournaments are maybe only 9 holes. You may only play 18 holes here and there. The yardage is short, all those kind of things. But what I look for as a college coach is someone who has played high school golf and they've been a team leader. They've been someone who's early, who stays late, who treats people with respect, who learns how to lead younger players, maybe take them to practice, take them home, teach them some things, at practice. All those kind of things are really, really important because if you're being recruited as a junior player, we know you're pretty good. So we're not really worried about scoring. We're going to see those scores. So if you have two people who average 75 and you're looking at two of those, and one person's playing high school golf and their high school coach is talking about how great they are, how they're on time, they stay late, they're a really good leader, all that kind of stuff, that's going to weigh more than the one that shoots 75, who comes in late, who doesn't do the right thing, who isn't doing a good job in the classroom, all that other stuff. So you have to understand that coaches aren't always looking only at scores, because if you're being recruited by somebody, they know you can play. Then the decision is, would they rather have player A or player B or player C? So, when I have people ask me about playing high school golf, I go with what Rick said, is you definitely should play high school golf. And a lot of it is because of all the other things, that go into it. Another last thing is understand, going to college, I don't like to always use this word, but it's a job, that you're at least 20 hours a week, that you're doing workouts, that you're at practice, those kind of things. And usually in high school, it leads you to learning those types of things. Like, this is when we come to practice. This is when we do these things. This is when we do this and that. And it's not always the same. And I know that not all high school programs may be run, real efficiently and all that kind of stuff. But when you get to college, it's not all about you. You're with other teammates. You have a very set schedule most of the time in some ways. And so that high school situation can really help you, in that process and development for you to be a little more ready for college, because college is a huge challenge. It doesn't matter where it's at. It doesn't matter what level it is. It's a very difficult thing to do. There's a lot of time that goes into it. And if you can learn those kind of things as a younger player, because I think sometimes someone's only a junior player and they've only done things on their own, and then they go to a team, there's a coach that pushes team and the things that go with it. It's a very difficult transition.
Yeah, great insight, Danny and Rick. I mean, like I said, we could be here for hours, right? I mean, we just scratched the surface for 30 minutes. And, for everybody in here, obviously we will share, especially with the recordings, all the information to contact both Rick and Danny. And Rick, just really quick, if somebody wants to get more info quick, where do they go? How do they get in touch with you and the hub?
Yeah, we have a website, or we're in the app stores for Android and iPhone. So Junior Golf Hub is our app, and our website is juniorgolfhub.com. We have a lot of great information on the website, a lot of stuff we talked about tonight. And it's also really easy to start your profile as a parent or a junior golfer or even a college coach if we have any of those on tonight. We also have some high school coach resources and access to the app as well. So as Chris said, we can get those out there as follow-up to the webinar tonight.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll get that out to everybody and make sure, obviously, that anybody who wants to get more info on the college golf recruiting landscape and just bettering their games and their players, how to get in touch with you guys. So, Danny, Rick, as always, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Like I said, great insight and I know appreciated from our entire audience and community.
Thank you, Chris. Both Chris's, and thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys. Fantastic. Awesome. Great insight there from our friends at Junior Golf Hub. And last but not least, we're really fortunate and excited, again, as I mentioned, friends within the junior golf world and greater golf community. We're really pleased to be joined here tonight by our friends at Youth on Course and Mr. Hugh Smith, who is the Youth on Course's Director of Regional Affairs. Hugh, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. And goes without saying, but like I said, everybody in the audience here, high school golfers, coaches, parents, you all do some excellent, fantastic work within the junior golf world. And I think it's something that if they haven't been familiar with in the past, they're going to learn some things here tonight. So without further ado, I'll get the slides pulled up and let you take things away. Thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much, Chris. Yeah, look forward to being part of the conversation. All right. So while Chris is cueing the presentation, just want to say thanks to all of you for allowing us to be a part of the conversation here. Youth on Course is what we like to say all about access. We do that through a number of different ways. We're based out of here in Monterey, California, in Northern California. And my goal tonight is really just to hopefully give a little more perspective on what Youth on Course is all about, what we do, and what opportunities are available to all of you, whether you're a high school player, a coach, or maybe even some course contacts who might be on the conference here. So we can kind of go to the first slide. I'd kind of kick it off with a short little promo video that we just created. It's a 1-minute video that just kind of goes into, how Youth on Course works and what we do. So I hope you enjoy it. Oh, not sure the sound is working there, Chris.
Is it, Hugh, is the sound a little low or?
No, it should work if it does look like it's turned up there on your computer.
Looks like we're all the way up.
It does.
One thing. We'll give it one more go here.
Okay, sure thing. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything. I'm not sure if the audience is able to hear anything either.
Okay, no audio. Okay, we'll make sure to send that in the follow up too, Hugh. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I appreciate that. And really, it's a short 1-minute video that just kind of goes into what Youth on Course does and really kind of highlights some of the opportunities available to young people. And so just to kind of kick into the presentation then, as I mentioned, Youth on Course is all about access. We do that through 3 key initiatives. If you've heard of Youth on Course, you're probably familiar with the top one there, subsidized rounds. So if we know that there are a number of barriers to playing the game of golf, and one of them is cost. Being able to afford a round of golf, depending on where you like to play, can be quite expensive. And so us here at Youth on Course, we're trying to hedge that. We're trying to change that to allow young people to play a round of golf affordably for $5 or less. I'll get into that on how that works and the benefits. The next 2 items there, the first are work opportunities. We've kind of rebranded that as careers on course. I'll get into our internship opportunities, but we do have another career opportunity through our caddy program. And so it's primarily based here in Northern California. So if we have any Northern California attendees on this call, definitely reach out to us. Would love to connect you with that opportunity. It's a really unique way, caddies, it's something I did when I was a young person. Through our Youth on Course Caddy initiative, we provide the training, and then we use an app to match up our caddies with potential golfers. Almost kind of like how Uber works. So if you are a player, you have a tee time, you have that tee time booked, you can put out a request for a caddy to caddy for you at specific courses, and any available caddies can kind of confirm that tee time, which is really unique. And so our Youth on Course caddies are paid $25 from the player. We match an additional $25, so it's a $50 fee that you receive. And then we have another special initiative called Caddies to College. So if there's any financial need, we'll match an additional $50 per round play caddy for. That'll help you hopefully get into college down the road. And so, again, if you're in the Northern California area, that's where we're primarily doing it. We also have a few golf courses in Kentucky, as we are looking to expand the caddy program into a few other states. So definitely reach out to us if that's of interest to you. Our scholarship initiative is kind of the 3rd tier of our 3 core programs. Every year we give out around 18 or 19 scholarships to our high school age Youth on Course members to help them get into college. And so I'll go into that here in a little bit. So you can go to the next slide. So Youth on Course, we provide this great opportunity through what we kind of call our YOC ecosystem. Everything from our donors who help us, raise dollars to subsidize those rounds that are played for our Youth on Course members, to our allied golf associations. So even though we're based here in Northern California, when we have expanded, we have partnered with state and regional golf associations around the country So when you join Youth on Course, your membership number actually doubles as your GIN number. So you can post scores, establish an index, which hopefully will help you down the road. And then the last two pieces there, right now we have over 1,500 courses that are partners for Youth on Course where you can play $5 or less. We have a map on our Youth on Course website that you can see all the courses near you. And we have a mobile phone app, which I'll also get into here in a little bit. But right now we have over 120,000 members that are active with Youth on Course. To join Youth on Course, we'll get into that in a little bit here as well. But that's on our website. So, everything from those who help us make the opportunity available to our partners, to the courses, to you, many of you who are on this call, young people who want to play affordably. You can click on that next slide. So in terms of, Youth on Course, when is the best time to join Youth on Course? We like to think we have a holistic approach, to the game, meaning that, there's a reason to join Youth on Course, no matter if you're just starting the game, if you're working on your skill development, recreational, competitive, or if you're looking for a career in the golf industry. Youth on Course is very applicable to you. And we complement many other youth development initiatives, which is very exciting for us. Around the country, we partner with chapters of the First Tee, LPGA Girls Golf Clubs, PGA Junior League, Drive, Chip, and Putt down the line. Many of these initiatives do a wonderful job at introducing golf to young people or, recreationally. But when it comes time to play on their own, many times that can continue to be a challenge. And that's when, ideally Youth on Course is available to get those young people out on the course to play, for $5 or less. So no matter where you are on this kind of scale here, we like to think Youth on Course is for you. Go ahead to that next slide. So every year we send out a survey to our members asking, how is Youth on Course, doing for you? Give us some feedback. And so I thought I would share, some of the results that we got from that survey. 97% of our members feel YLC has positively impacted their life. 88% of members feel that Youth on Course has helped them exercise more. One of the really other unique responses that we got back was 90% of our members feel welcome at Youth on Course facilities. And so again, as we think about barriers, to the game of golf, many times, for new players or young people or women, it can be quite intimidating to show up to a golf course, check in, or reserve a tee time. And so it's really, comforting to know that, 90% of our members feel welcome at our facilities. Definitely encourages them to come back, play again, and continue to play at all of our facilities. Okay, go to the next slide. So these next couple slides thought I would share kind of how it works. So for courses, if we have any potential course contacts on the call, or if there's a course near you that isn't a participating facility and you would like for them to be, this is also, some relevant information for you as well. And so, we work proactively with our state and regional golf associations to identify courses. We also reach out to courses directly, and we have a real simple process for courses to join. There's an online form that they can submit that gives us all the information that we need to enter into a long-term agreement with those facilities. The agreement can change at any time and really just helps to define how Youth on Course is going to work at that facility. So we know you're going to be paying $5 or less. There's also a subsidy that's attached to every round played that's reimbursed to the golf course. So just as an FYI, that national average is around $7 that's reimbursed to the course. And so what we try to do is start the conversation with whatever the junior rate is at the facility as part of our conversation when we're implementing it. And then the last piece of that agreement is, when can Youth on Course members come out and play that specific facility? And so that changes from course to course. When we go into the conversation with a course owner operator, we want our members to have as much access as available. On the previous presenters, we're talking about COVID, and I'm sure many of you may have experienced a huge increase in activity at golf courses. All of us in the golf business, one unexpected outcome of the pandemic was a huge increase in golf activity. And so what that meant for our Youth on Course members was, slightly modified accessibility at our course partners. So rather than it being available every day, all day, it might be more defined to certain days of the week and maybe after a certain time of day. But as most youth initiatives experienced last year, we had a huge increase in activity, and so happy to say that we didn't lose any course partners. If anything, we grew, and so just really exciting time for us at Youth on Course. And then that last reason for courses to join are ideally we're filling unused times or slow times on the tee sheet. But in addition to that, we are bringing more activity in terms of junior activity to that facility. Many of our Youth on Course members bring an adult with them when they play. And so there's a number of reasons, for a facility to want to join Youth on Course. So next slide. For Youth on Course members, so like many of you that are on this call, there are a lot of this. We've made it really easy, to join Youth on Course. So on our website, there's an online form that you can use to join Youth on Course. The membership fee for the year is only around $25, which is very affordable. And with that membership, you then have access to these 1,500 plus courses around the country. And then in terms of grow, when you become a Youth on Course member, you're eligible for those careers on course, like the internship, caddy program, and then our scholarship. So there's a lot of really great opportunities, and our state and regional golf associations also have a number of special events and activities available to Youth on Course members outside of the core access, subsidy-based program. Okay, next slide. I mentioned, earlier we have a Youth on Course app. And so this can be found in the Apple Store or Google Play. And so when you download it, you can create a profile in the app. So this image here is my son, Cameron. And so, when you download the app and create your profile, this is your membership card that you're looking at here. And so it has your name, your membership number, and then at the bottom there that you're an active member. But in addition to accessing your digital card, you also have an opportunity to track rounds played, find courses near you. We have a new feature now where you can book tee times through the app, which is really unique. And one of the things that we heard from our golf course partners last year was, with how busy they were, being able to book a time for a Youth on Course member when they would like to play. And so with the booking feature, it makes it really easy. So we've done that now with Golf Now. So if you click on a course that's participating, you'll see the available tee times there, and you can book it right there through the app. So just another opportunity in terms of convenience to make that round of golf more accessible to you. Okay, next slide. So a couple more images from the app. So again, on that left side there, when a Youth on Course member logs into the app, this is kind of what that menu looks like. So if you're looking to book a course online, there's two ways you can do it. You can find a course near you. So these are some of the courses here in the Monterey area that are participating. If it is a course that's also using the Golf Now feature, there's a book a tee time button there, like you see there for Laguna Seca golf course. And then if you click on that button or the book a tee time through the menu, it'll take you to that final image, which shows the available tee times there that you can book for $5 or less. So as you see there, there at Laguna Seca, those tee times start at 6:40 in the morning. So they're a great example of a facility that's available pretty much at any time for our Youth on Course members. And then these tee times are real time. So if I'm booking a tee time there as a non-Youth on Course member, at that 7 o'clock time, then it would not appear for a Youth on Course member that's looking to book a time. So we've tried to make that really easy and just another convenient way to book a time, for our Youth on Course members. Next slide. Our reach, as I mentioned, we're reaching over 120,000 young people. Last year we had over 400,000 rounds played, which is fantastic. So no matter what state you're in, Youth on Course, we're there, or we maybe have just expanded to your state. This year we're making a push to expand into all remaining states. And so we have a few new states that we've just expanded to that we are identifying, new courses and getting the program rolling out. So again, back to that slide, about 2 slides ago, if there's a course in your area that you would like for us to consider becoming a Youth on Course partner, please reach out to us and let us know. Okay, next slide. Next slide. So a little more detail about our initiatives in terms of our scholarships. So again, every year we give out around a little over $250,000 in scholarships, which is very exciting for us. And one of the stats here, that last bullet, is so significant to us, that 40% of our scholarship recipients are first in their family to go to college. As someone myself who was first in my family to go to college, that's such a significant thing. And we're so proud of the fact that we're supporting our Youth on Course members with getting into college. And so that's just another opportunity that's available to you as a Youth on Course member. Okay, next. I mentioned Careers on Course. So, and I saw there was a question that popped up asking about the internship program. So the internship program is at private clubs, public courses. It's here in Northern California, and we are expanding it to other states. And it's a really great opportunity to learn about, what it takes to work at a golf course. Those jobs include maybe working in the pro shop, answering the phones, learning about inventory. It could be working in the clubhouse at a private club or a snack bar at a public facility. You could be learning some culinary skills or a host or a hostess. It could be on the grounds with the superintendent, learning about what it takes to maintain a golf facility. If you're old enough, you might, and train properly, you can operate some of the equipment, or maybe it's just as easy as raking bunkers and, helping, the maintenance staff. And then the last piece is outside service. But the nice thing for our course partners who participate in the internship program is we pay the salary for these Youth on Course members to get these internship positions. So it's a really awesome opportunity. Definitely a win-win-win. It's a win for the golf course because they're having someone like yourself, if you're a high school person, working out at the facility. It's a win, for us, as a Youth on Course, organization trying to make these opportunities available. And then we'd like to think it's a win for you as a participant, learning these new job skills and helping you to hopefully identify maybe what you might want to do long term. I included some stats here and some of the feedback that we've received from those who have participated in the internship program. But again, if it's something that you'd like to do, we have an online forum on our website at youthoncourse.org. And it's just a really nice opportunity, to learn about careers and maybe identify a skill set that you didn't know you had. Last couple slides here. So how do we make all this work? Last year we reimbursed almost $3 million to our golf course partners through subsidies for rounds played by our members. So how do we do that? Through some very successful fundraising. We have 3 initiatives that we do every year. So right now, if you go into Golf Now and book a tee time, there is an opportunity for you to donate to Youth on Course when you're checking out. It's basically a roundup program. Another initiative that we do is an online auction. So in the fall, if you visit our Youth on Course website, you'll see a number of packages there. A lot of them are golf trips, golf access, trips in general. But there's also this slide here, which is our 100-hole hike. And so if you're up for the challenge, we would love for you to consider hiking 100 holes in one day to support Youth on Course. And so the way it works is if you decide that you would like to be a hiker, and if you have that interest, again, please reach out to us. But you would reach out to your friends and family. If you're an adult, maybe there's colleagues, maybe there's business partners or people that you know. But you're asking folks to make a pledge to support you in playing 100 holes in one day. And so the average gift is $1 per hole, so it's about $100. And then during the day, we help to set up the location where you would do it. Some of these locations are at short courses, but the idea is you're playing 100 holes all around Youth on Course, and every dollar goes right into, the subsidies that we pay to our golf course partners. And so, right now, last year we raised almost $1 million. And if you see that stat there, to date, we've already passed that goal, which is unbelievable to us. And so last year, when we reached almost $1 million during the pandemic, we thought, how could we ever, bypass that number? And so who would have thought that in terms of fundraising that we would be at that number today? And so it's a true testament to, all of you believing in what we do and supporting and making these opportunities available to our members. But if you're interested in hiking, please reach out. I just did my hike, about a month or so ago. I did it at a short course. I made a putt from here to probably where it felt like where you're sitting for a birdie on the last hole. It was just a really exciting end. So if you want to find out more, you can go on our website, on our Youth on Course, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. There's a lot